Hello and welcome to Living in Reno. I am Dave Johnson with Sierra Sotheby's International Realty.
And I'm his wife, Sarah.
And you have lived in Reno a very long time.
Yes.
I've lived here more than a decade now, and we're here to share some more insight when it comes to Reno, this time talking about the pros and cons of living in Reno, Nevada. Pros and cons of living in Reno this time around, and we got a long list. There's a lot of good and there's a lot of bad. It kind of balances.
You say the word bad, I say room for growth.
Okay. I like the optimism. Very nice. Well, one of the things I will tell you that is one of the pros that I noticed immediately of moving here, because I'm originally from Kansas City. It's a slower Midwestern culture. I don't mean slow like short bus slow, but you know what I mean. But it's, neighborly, I guess is the best way to put it. And when I moved here, I noticed like people holding open doors and stuff, which I was not used to because I moved here from Vegas after living in Vegas for 2 years. So that was wild to see the pro of like, wow, the people are pretty nice.
I keep hearing that from people who move here from larger metropolitan areas. I grew up in the country, and so I grew up with that. And here, it is very much that people are considerate of one another. We can spend hours in our street talking to our neighbors. So that's just where we live.
That's especially you.
Yeah, that's true.
Sometimes the kids will be running around in here, and all of a sudden I realize you're gone for like an hour, and I just pop my head out, and, oh, she's talking to the neighbor. She's talking to the neighbor again.
About you.
Yeah, probably. Or the kids. But now one con side of that, though, is I've heard this argument from people before, and you mentioned country, is, and I've heard this complaint from people, and then when I never saw it myself, but when I heard the complaint, I was like, oh, I could see that. But kind of the country feel, and dare I say the word redneck in some areas. We do have some of that kind of country vibe where, in other words, they may not want to talk to their neighbors. They want to be very isolated and they want to live on a lot of land and stay away from people. That's kind of what I'm talking about.
Okay, and I can see that. And an area where we do need a room, or where we have an area for growth, let's put it that way, is if you are seeking a community that is extremely diverse. This is not like New York City. It's not like the Bay Area. It's not like Southern California. There is definitely growing. Our community is growing and our populations are growing, but it's not nearly as diverse as some of the larger metropolitan areas in the country.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference I've seen from growing up and living in Kansas City so long, because I am so old.
This is true.
But that is one thing that you just don't see, because, I mean, Kansas City is one of the, 25, 30 biggest cities in the nation. So you're going to automatically have that. And you don't have that here because we're the biggest little city. So We're growing, but we're not to that point yet.
And, okay, let's talk what there are in large cities that we do not yet have in Reno. If you are moving from a larger metropolitan area and you are used to high dollar shopping, we don't have that. We don't have a Louis Vuitton. We don't have a Tiffany's. We don't have, I don't know what else is there, Gucci. We don't have those stores. And if you are used to shopping at stores like that, or at least just wanting to window shop, you will have to drive to San Francisco. The closest drive would be Roseville. That's 2 hours away. Or you could hop a flight to Las Vegas, which is an hour away.
Or go online. It's all online. We have those stores. They're online. Everybody has those stores. But yeah, you're right. There's not. I recently had a client say that they wanted to be near high-end shopping. And I thought to myself, we don't have that? I mean, we have higher end.
Right.
Like our office is at the Summit Mall. It's a higher end mall.
Right.
But we don't have a high-end shopping area. Like in Kansas City, they have the Country Club Plaza, which is where the lights are and all the fancy shops are that you just mentioned and all that stuff.
Right.
So yeah, that's one difference of living here.
If that is something that you need, just for the ambiance or the feel or for the shopping, there is San Francisco 4 hours away, Roseville 2 hours away, Las Vegas an hour flight.
So we did a pro and then we did a con. So I'll do a pro to your con of the lack of high-end shopping. The pro is we don't have high-end shopping. I like that. That's my favorite pro. But also another pro I can tell you about is we have a very strong economy here. And, I talk to a lot of people across the country. They talk about, whether it's a realtor or just someone, not in the real estate world, and their city is maybe struggling or their housing is struggling. We don't have that. Our median home price is quite large, still well above 500,000 for a median home price. And just as an example, Vegas, geez, I think it's around 300, if that, for a median home price. Kansas City is even lower. So just from my background, when it came here, it was like sticker shock when it came to the con side of that, which is high housing prices because of that strong economy. And we have so many people moving from California, where in the Bay Area, a $2 million house here would cost about maybe $800,000 to $1 million, maybe.
Right.
So,
and let's just give it some perspective, because we don't know when you're going to be watching this. We are filming this in August of 2023. And what are interest rates right now?
7.26.
Okay. So that just gives you some perspective depending on when you're watching this.
I was put on the spot.
You were. Good job, honey. Woo.
Yes, so interest rates certainly a factor when it comes to the mortgages and availability, especially for first-time buyers. Much easier to qualify for a home when you're selling one,
right?
Obviously. But when it comes to that strong economy that is the pro side of this, the con side is our infrastructure is not quite where it needs to be.
Right. And they are currently, so in Reno, there's winter and there's road construction season. And since we're in August, we are still in road construction season. And they are, our state is in the process of doing a big project on we call it I-580. It's also Highway 395.
Also the Spaghetti Bowl.
Yep, the Spaghetti Bowl. So essentially in Reno, you've got 580, 395 that runs north-south. You've got 80 that runs east-west, and then you've got the McCarran Loop. So that's how our city is structured, and we have now built beyond the McCarran Loop. 40 years ago, McCarran encompassed the whole city.
Yeah, like we live in an area that used to be called South Reno. It's not South Reno at all.
Not at all.
Not anymore. Right. It's Old Southwest now is what it's actually called. But South Reno is many miles south of us now. So that's how much it's changed over these years. But one of the pros I just mentioned was the strong economy. But on the downside of that is the high housing prices. So that's something to kind of, it goes hand in hand. And a lot of that is because of all those California transplants wanting to get out of California and move over here, because people think, Reno and Las Vegas are very close together. They're not. It's like a 6 to 7 hour drive. It's
the way he drives.
It's much further apart than people think. LA and Vegas are very close, and Reno and the Bay Area are very close. About what, 4 hours, 5 hours? Yeah. So
depends on traffic.
Yeah, and my driving. But we're seeing a lot of people move from California to here, which has just very gradually moved our prices up and up.
Right. And to traffic, to your point with traffic and how long it takes to drive from here to the Bay Area, it is true. It depends on the traffic when you are driving to the Bay Area. We have people who move here and they say, I hear the OGs of Reno complaining about traffic and how it's getting worse. This is not bad at all. Because it really could, if you were driving from one side of Reno to the other side of Reno. Now, I'm not talking Sparks, but Reno to Reno, you could go from one side to the other in 20 minutes.
I'd say 10.
Again, the way he drives.
Right. Grandma here behind the wheel. Well, we'll get there within 18 minutes.
But we'll be safe, kitties.
Oh, boy. So on the pro side of that, too, though, with our strong economy is another pro, and that is no state income tax.
Right.
A lot of people already know that, but you may not realize how that works with the con side of that, which is the property taxes. And that's all a very complicated issue. So the pro side, no state income tax, awesome, great. I love it for the fact of not just not paying the state for income, but also not having to file and do another form and do another, because it's like that becomes a lot when you're doing.
Yeah, we just file federal. Yep. That's all we do when we have tax season.
Yeah, so it's much easier process, cheaper when it comes to hiring a tax person to do that for you, cheaper if you're doing it yourself even. But on the con side of that is it's a complicated tax situation when it comes to property taxes.
And the IRS will get you anyway.
Yes, you end up paying somehow. And that is true. We've seen that, even in Texas and other states where there's no state income tax, they get their money elsewhere.
Right. So Washoe County has a gas tax. The property
very high gas tax.
Yes,
actually.
A very high gas tax.
Well, and the trick of that is too, if you go to outskirt communities outside of Washoe County, whether that's Fernley, Fallon, Carson City, it's amazing. It's usually about 15-20 cents cheaper per gallon to go there. So if we're planning a trip, or I've got listings in other parts of the area, I'll make sure I fill up out there because it's so much cheaper. And also the gas taxes in Washoe County do not sunset. They are not going away. So it is quite strong. So back to the property taxes. People don't realize that property taxes in Reno are based mostly, not all, but mostly on the year built. Normally, in a lot of areas, it is based on the assessed value of the home. That's the most important factor. Here, the year built is the most important factor. So if you have $1 million home that is built in, let's say, 1920, taxes on that may be like $1,200. And if you have $1 million home built in 2022, let's say, the taxes on that could be $35,000, maybe $4,000. And I know this because I just looked it up for somebody when I was talking about this very subject. It is that different. So if you're looking at your overall tax picture, that is something to consider when buying a house.
And not only something to consider, but it's also something that our state lawmakers look at every legislative session. And so, that is a potential variable.
Yep. So those are some of the tax issues when it comes to pros and cons. Well, another pro is I love the weather. It's a nice dry climate. Growing up in Kansas City, it was very humid, very swampy. Like if it's 90 degrees, man, 90 degrees here versus 90 degrees in the Midwest feels totally different.
With that, we do have winter and we have wildfire season. Because we are so dry and we are in the desert and the forest, because the forest backs up to parts of Reno and the desert backs up to parts of Reno, we have some significant fire events in our community because, yes, we are so dry. In August, you'll start to see that monsoonal moisture. And so we will have those lightning storms that are beautiful, like amazingly beautiful. But then again, you have lightning strikes that cause those wildfires.
That's cute. But the lightning is hilarious. The lightning storms. You have not seen lightning until you see spring thunderstorms on the Midwest. But yes, we do get little bit of lightning. But yeah, so the pro is a nice dry climate, sunny quite a bit.
No bugs, very few bugs.
Very few bugs, except when you leave the back door open, which I'm looking at.
Because it's so nice.
But also the negative side of that is, like you said, the wildfires. But the other positive too is, like you said, we get the seasons, but we don't typically get extreme seasons.
Right.
Now, winter 2022 was that was nuts.
It was insane.
That was the one that you probably heard on the news, Tahoe getting, feet and feet of snow. Jeremy Renner had the snowcat. That's the winter when he had the snowcat roll over him. So that's the winter we're talking about. It was quite crazy.
And one final note for you folks at home who are watching this, considering moving to Reno or moving to Nevada, you may notice our state school statistics. Nevada,
they're not pretty.
Yeah, they always
they really
test
aren't.
Towards the bottom. I want to say high 40s.
And I know that, sorry to interrupt, I know that from living in Vegas also and doing TV news there. We did tons of stories on the education system in Vegas being absolutely horrendously rated, but I'm
going to blame Vegas, and this is something that Northern Nevadans say.
It's
Vegas.
It's not Vegas, because I know that from living in both. It's truly, unfortunately, non-English speaking students that bring down the averages. So English as a second language is really the bigger problem, because there's some amazing schools in Vegas, but the overall rating is quite poor because of the language barrier. Same exact thing in Reno.
Okay. We have.
Did I just blow? I think I just blew your mind. No?
I'm just editing. I'm self-editing.
You can say whatever you'd like.
I do have to say that up here in Northern Nevada, we have phenomenal schools. We have phenomenal educators. We have public schools. We have private schools. We have charter schools. The charter schools are within the public school district. Our son goes to public school. Our daughter is going to go to private school for kindergarten, because Nevada did just change its state law that you must be 5 on or before August 1st to start kindergarten, unless you started kindergarten in another state, because the state law explains how old you have to be in kindergarten, how old you have to be in first grade, and how old you have to be in second grade. So if you're moving from another state and you're still in that first and second grade window, if your child attended kindergarten already and turned 5 after August 1st, they can still get into our public schools.
We should have had a chalkboard for this. I'm so confused. The only reason I sort of stayed, because our daughter, that's the only reason I was able to sort of stay on track. So the bottom line is, the pros, when it comes to schools, we have some great schools, really across the state. The con is, we have terrible rankings when you look at just state-by-state rankings. That's just the bottom line.
And you said this in another video that we've done. It is incumbent on you as a home shopper to research schools, because you as a real estate agent cannot discuss schools.
Yeah, I can simply show you, here's the Washoe County School web address, here's the resources. I'm not allowed to say much more, because it can get into steering and manipulation and fair housing issues. So we're not really allowed to talk about it at all. So if we get a little weird when it comes to housing or schools or crime rates, that's why.
So, and you'll see that with any realtor.
There you go. It's a long list, but those are the pros and cons of living in Reno. I think we covered a lot.
I think we did.
I'm tired. I'm going to go to the chalkboard.
Okay.
Okay. Click like and subscribe to these videos. We would certainly appreciate it. We'll see you later.